Welcome to this short training video. We hope it will support any voluntary group or community organisation in Glasgow who want to apply for a grant from the Glasgow Wellbeing Fund. We're able to provide this funding opportunity thanks to the Scottish Government. This fund is only available to benefit adults within the Glasgow city boundary. So if your project aims to help people in other local authority areas, please consider the Wellbeing Fund opportunities currently available there. This video also includes guidance on good practice principles and application techniques that might help with applications for other grant funding opportunities. If you're looking for more support, please visit the GCVS website to explore a wide range of other resources available to the voluntary sector in Glasgow. Before you begin to apply to this fund, it's really important to consider all the resources available from our website page. Before you begin, please read through every page of the guideline document for this fund. This is especially important if you are applying for the first time. If you've applied before, please note the changes we have made for this round. You can also watch a recording of our live information session or download a Word version of the application form or check the answers to frequently asked questions and also access other resources and support. If you need additional help to access all this information, please phone us on 0141 332 2444. As with any other grant funding opportunity, you'll find that time invested in reading through the guidelines will be well spent. Make sure your organisation is eligible to apply and ask yourself whether the purpose of this fund has a good fit with your work. Here is a very quick overview of the guidelines for the fund. We can support a wide range of voluntary, not-for-profit organisations, charities, groups and clubs that have a strong community focus for their activities. The types of eligible organisations are listed here. If you're not sure, then please check the guidelines or contact us to ask. Your organisation or group should be managed by a team of at least 3 volunteers who are not related. For example, this might be your board of directors or committee. We especially welcome applications from small-scale, well-connected community groups in Glasgow. Our priority is to support smaller groups with an annual income less than £25,000. You can only apply to this fund using our online application form. So before you begin to complete the online form, make sure you have all the following documents and information to hand, because you will need to upload them to the online application form. You will need your governing document. This might be your constitution or other written document that explains your aims and objectives and describes how your organisation is run. If you don't have a written governing document, please select the unconstituted organisation option in the application form. We will also ask for a copy of your most recent annual accounts, or if you don't have this, then provide a copy of your most recent annual financial statement or management records. You will need a bank account in the same name of your organisation or group, and we will also ask to see your recent bank statement. Unconstituted groups can ask a partner organisation to hold grant funding on their behalf. If this applies to you, we will ask for more information about your partnership arrangements in the application form. It's also a good idea to make sure your online sites, such as your social media page or website, are up to date and they reflect your work and the difference it makes. We might take a quick look at these to understand your work better. Most eligible organisations will be able to apply for a maximum grant of £10,500. Groups or organisations that don't have a constitution or other governing document can apply for funding up to £2,000. Your project must last for at least 6 months and should be completed within 18 months from your project start date. You cannot include any expenditure made before the grant award, and we expect that funding will be distributed to successful applicants before the end of March 2026. You can find more detailed information from the fund guidelines and resources. We expect to receive a very high demand for this fund, which means we'll receive many more applications than we can afford to support. So here are a few tips to help you succeed. As with any other grant-making opportunity, it's important to look for grants that have a strong match with your work. Generally speaking, grant makers don't support organisations. Instead, they support the positive difference organisations make. So if the difference you want to make from your work matches the difference a grant maker wants to make with their money, then you will have a better chance of success. On the other hand, if you find your work doesn't have a direct match, then don't apply. So what difference does the Glasgow Wellbeing Fund aim to make? We want to improve the mental health and well-being of adults in Glasgow. We aim to support local community projects that bring adults together. That's people aged 16 and over. We're especially interested in funding projects that help people who are most in need. They might be those who experience distress, disadvantage, or isolation. Also, adults who are particularly affected by the ongoing cost of living crisis. If your group plans to achieve this, it's essential to tell us very clearly in your application. Please don't leave us to imagine or imply the difference your activities will make. You must make this clear. Assume the person reading your application is a complete stranger to your work. Even if your organisation is very well known or you've received a grant from us before, include information that might seem obvious to you. In the guidelines, we've given 7 priorities or well-being drivers that show what better well-being might look like. So in your application, you should explain how your work contributes to at least one of these well-being drivers. We suggest you choose no more than 3 and only those that have the closest fit with your work. The application form asks you to describe your project, and many grant makers use this term as a tidy way to explain the work they're being asked to fund. But if the core work of the organisation fits with the main purpose and priorities for this fund, you don't need to create a separate or a new project. In this case, you can choose to focus on all your work as a whole or to describe only a particular aspect of your work. In your application, it's a good idea to spend some time to prepare a very clear summary statement. This will help you to complete question 19 in the application form. Just like many other grant makers, we will ask you to summarise your project in a few words at the beginning of the application form. Here, you should try to capture the core essence of your entire project in one logical paragraph. Your statement should stand alone, so the reader should be able to understand your work without looking at any other parts of your application. Take time to think about what you will say here. because it could be the most important answer in the entire application. Here's where a case for support statement would come in handy. A case for support is a really powerful fundraising tool, not only for grant funding, but in many other fundraising contexts. So let's have a look at this. A clear case for support statement shows how your project will contribute to the fund's purpose and priorities. It should answer 3 key questions. Firstly, why is your project needed? Secondly, what activities will you do to address that need? And above all, what difference will all your activities make? Your fundraising case for support statement can often be rather different to your organisation's written aims and objectives, and these are often found in your governing document. Ideally, for grant funding, you should try to make your case for support dynamic and compelling. Most of all, for grant applications, it needs to be tailored to address the purpose and priorities of the funder. So let's take a look at this in a bit more detail in relation to this particular fund. Let's consider needs first of all. So tell us, why is your work needed? In other words, what are the mental health and well-being needs of adults in your community? What well-being issues or problems would you like to change? It's important to tell us how you define your community. You might seek to address needs in a specific geographic area, like Postle Park, for example. Or your project might focus on the needs of adults within a community of interest, for example, single parents or people living with particular disabilities. And how do you know there's a need for your project? Include information from your own experience. For example, is there a high demand for your services? Or what is your experience of working within your community? Or maybe you could tell us about the results from recent consultation or feedback received from local people. It would also be good to explain how people are excluded or disadvantaged. For grant applications, always give local knowledge and information first. Tell us what you know about adults in your community. Grant makers usually like to see information they can't find anywhere else. So first-hand knowledge and information can often be much more valuable than public demographic statistics or indices of deprivation. In this case, you must tell us about the needs of your community. It's also important to explain the things you will do to address the need. Try to describe your activities and services as simply and briefly as possible. Avoid any technical words and use ordinary everyday language that everyone can understand. In your summary, describe your main activities and some of the things you will do in your project. If volunteers will help to deliver activities, then say so. Also, as no group works in isolation, name the other organisations you work with in your community. You should also explain what you will do to promote inclusion, equality and diversity. And let's take a quick look at what we mean by this. This is really about the positive, targeted action you will take to make sure everyone is enabled to take part. So tell us how your activities will promote human rights. Priority will be given to projects that overcome barriers, improve participation, or bring people together from different perspectives. So, for example, you might provide transport or translation services or information in different languages. You might provide particular types of food or specialist training for volunteers or you might partner with other organisations that offer specialist services or unique skills. If you need more information about this topic, the 3 Project has some helpful advice on their website, particularly for grant applications. They provide training and guidelines with examples to show what grant makers are looking for this type of question. You can download a copy from their website and the link is shown here. Most importantly, you must show us how your work will make a difference to improve lives. Consider what's changing. For this fund, you should explain how your project will improve mental well-being for the adults who take part in your activities. Again, please don't imply anything or leave this to our imagination. You must state the difference you intend to make very clearly in your application. So try to link your answers with your selected well-being drivers. If you've delivered this type of project before, please mention any evidence you might have that proves your impact. You might have provided this type of information in a previous grant report. You might also mention your previous track record of success, but please make sure you have evidence to back up what you say. Let's take a look at an example of a case for support summary statement. This is for a completely fictitious project. We've just made it up, but it could be typical. It says, it says, we will support isolated and lonely older people in Govan to meet in a local church hall for a hot lunch and fun activities 1 day a week throughout the year. Volunteers will encourage and support everyone to take part. We will work with the church and a housing association to help people to strengthen their community connections, build friendships, and improve their emotional well-being. Notice that this statement doesn't go into any great detail about all the things you need the money for. Also, it doesn't include a shopping list or say how much money you need. The case for support summary uses words that most people can understand. And the person reading this can immediately see it has a good fit with the purpose and priorities of this fund. It's important to be brief and to the point. An effective case for support statement could be very concise. This one here is only 65 words, but it says everything you need. Consider the word allowance in the application form is only a limit, it's not a target. It's important that at this stage you don't talk about yourselves, your staff, your skills, your financial need. Instead, focus your statement on the adults you aim to help and on the difference your work will make for them. So let's break down the content of this case for support example. Here are the needs. The reader can see that this project will address the mental health and well-being needs of older people who are socially isolated and lonely. We've included a specific geographic area of Glasgow, Govan in this instance. However, if you work with people across the city who are from a community of interest, then describe their needs. So you might say something like newly arrived refugees and asylum seekers, or new single parents, or adults living with profound disability. Remember to be concise at this stage. You will be asked to give more detail later in the application form. Now let's take a look at the activities in this example. So here are the activities or the main things this group plans to do. There might be many more activities they do, but here they've only included the main activities. The other information on all the other things you plan to do can be provided later on in the form. Bearing in mind that this fund places huge importance on community connection, notice how this statement talks about volunteers, and it also mentions partner organisations, in this case a local church and a housing association. Again, you don't need to go into great detail in your summary statement. We don't need you to list all your activities, volunteers, and every local partner at this stage. You can go on to give more information later on. Here, in this summary, we want you to describe the main things you'll do and to indicate your main partner organisations. But most importantly, your case for support should focus on the differences your project will make to improve mental well-being. You can see from this example that the project will bring people together in an in-person social meeting to feel better connected with the community, meet with friends, and feel happier. This project fits with many well-being drivers, but perhaps most closely with one: connection to others within the community. It's also important to realise that some volunteers are also likely to be secondary beneficiaries of this project. So, in just a few well-chosen words, this statement demonstrates that the project has a strong fit with this fund's purpose and priorities. It gives a snapshot of your project that everyone can understand. Concise and clear paragraphs like this will boost your chances of success in many other fundraising contexts. But your case for support summary statement is just a start. As you work through the application form, we will ask you to expand on your summary and ask you to provide more detail. Remember as you go along always to keep in mind the purpose and priorities of this fund and to include information that directly matches with this purpose and priorities. It's a good idea to keep the guidelines on hand as you complete the form. Many of the questions in the form are straightforward tick boxes, but there are some longer sections where we ask you to provide more detail. And here are a few tips for those sections. Read each question carefully and then read it again. Check the relevant notes in the guidelines and think about the types of information we're asking for. Consider the focus of each question carefully. Ask, is the question asking about needs, or is it about your activities, or is it about the differences you aim to make? And then reply accordingly and give as much information as you can. In the longer free text sections of the application form, start your answer with a summary paragraph and then go on to give more detail. Remember, you must demonstrate a strong link between your project and the purpose and priorities of the Wellbeing Fund. The online application form is divided into sections, so you cannot see all the questions at once. However, you can download a Word version of the application form, and this will help you to see all the questions. The Word version is a great tool to help you draft all your answers before you start to type into the online version. Try to include all the information you have that is directly relevant for each particular question. If you don't know where to start, just make some very rough notes in the Word version. You can always go back over these and keep on amending and refining them further as you go along. Remember to read through your entire application to make sure it makes sense. Check that your budget figures correspond with your narrative descriptions. It's often a good idea to ask someone else to read through the application first. When you have a final draft already, then transfer the information into the online application form. So before we finish this video, let's recap on some top tips. Here are a few things that we really want to see in your application. You must tell us how your project will help adults in Glasgow to improve their mental health and well-being. This should be the focus of your application. So tell us, how do you know there's a clear need for your project? What do adults in your community say about their well-being? Explain how your organisation is connected to your community and name your main partners and the other organisations you'll work with. Tell us what positive actions you will take to make sure everyone can take part in your activities, particularly those people who would benefit most. Include any evidence you might have that shows how effective your activities are in improving people's lives. If you've delivered similar projects before, tell us about your track record of success. So we hope this brief training video will help you make a strong application to the Glasgow Wellbeing Fund, and we wish you every success. Please make sure you complete your application online before Wednesday the 29th of October, but don't wait until then. Apply as soon as you can. If you're looking for other support from GCVS, we can offer a range of free services. So register for our funded support service to gain access to free training, advice surgeries and resources. To help you search for other grant funding opportunities, we also offer access to our powerful grant search system. We also provide funding news and updates in our regular newsletters, and you'll find full information on these from the GCVS website. Thank you for watching.